Hello, hello, and welcome to Jazz After Dark. How you doing? So much of a nerd that I am, my daughter likes 21 Pilots, and so anytime they're anywhere near us or Salt Lake City, we just go to their concerts. And a long time ago, one of their concerts, they had this British guy. And, somewhere in the beginning of the show, it'd get quiet, and this British guy would come over and go, "Hello, and welcome to the show." I'm such a nerd that Wine and Wealth, the class we do for clients, I got that British guy to do the intro for our show. I'm like, that's just so cool. Anyways, I'm also a nerd a little bit about this whiskey here. I'm learning more and more as we go. Last night, we're doing the Balkanist flight here this week. Last night, we had the Lineage Texas single malt whiskey, and I saved that because I thought that was phenomenal. We're financial advisors, by the way, here. We're not going to just sit here and drink. This is a part of Flaviar, the little sort of monthly service that we get where they send you different vials, these cool little vials of stuff, and it just gives you a chance to sample different things, so you don't have to spend so much on a bottle, and it's really inexpensive and really cool. We like it in the office. Me and Charlie both have a membership, and we get a chance to play around. We're going to talk about your option game tonight. One of the interesting things about us is that we're fund managers by default. Our background is in investing and trading, and that's what we've supported our whole lives. And so we like to talk about it. And no other advisor, and I've yet to find one. Advisors get mad at me when I say this, but no other advisor can really talk about this outside of what they learned on their Series 65 test. Not that that's a bad thing. It's just that that's maybe a little differentiator for us. Tonight we'll be talking about options, and before that, Balcones. I'm just guessing that's how you say it. A little rough and tumble group out of Texas. We'll be trying just the straight single malt whiskey. It says you'll get banana. I'm impressed. Marmalade, orange, caramel, of course, is a given. This one don't smell so great. I get the pear that they're talking about. If you don't know what I'm looking at on the back of this card that you get in your Flaviar membership, tells you what it is, a little bit about it, and then the tastes or smells that you would get out of it. Okay, yeah, I guess I get a hint. I don't know if I probably was reading banana and thought that. I gotta tell you, this, by the way, we don't get anything from these guys, but this is probably my new favorite mix of whiskeys here. Last night's was phenomenal. This is phenomenal. Whole different flavor, definitely marmalade and orange, pear for sure. Really good. Good job. So that's going in my favorite column as well. Hope you're enjoying yourself. A little something to drink here tonight. Put options. So we won't do a whole options talk tonight, so I've already rambled a little bit here. I've done classes for clients on beginning option strategies, covered calls, the difference between buying and selling calls and puts, and just lessons there. Not the most popular class with clients, but that's okay. I like talking about it. But tonight we're going to focus just on puts in reference to using them as a hedge. And I'm going to offer the question, how good is your hedge game? How good is your put hedge game? At times like these in the market, people go, I'd like to protect some of my gains from the last so many years I've been investing. Oh man, it's going well. I'd like to protect. And the most common thing you do is buy puts. And the example there would be you either buy puts on an index or on a particular stock that you might own, and it limits your downside. Basically what happens is, in a matter of very general speaking, if that stock were to drop, the value of your shares would lose money, but the value of your put presumably would go up unless you sold way out of the money. It would go up. And so it's sort of capping your loss, meaning if you lost $1 here, you probably gained about $1 or so here, and it offsets that, thus creating a hedge. Now, typically people will not hedge 1 for 1. That's just a fancy way of saying if you have 100 shares of Apple, you would not likely buy 1 put and offset your hedge because there's a cost to buying a put. The reason you wouldn't do a 1 for 1 is because if you were really nervous about Apple, you might just sell it. I get it. If it's the end of the year and you're worried about a tax gain or something, Maybe, and you had a sizable gain. If you had made like $50 in Apple and it cost you $3 for a put, but you don't want to take the capital gain. You see how there's some outlying reasons why I could understand that you might hedge, but typically you wouldn't do it one for one. You would say, I own 1,000 shares of Apple and I'm okay with it pulling back. Chances are I've owned it this whole time and I've seen many ups and downs, but this one's got me worried. So I will, for every 1,000 shares I have, I'm going to buy 3 puts equal to 300 shares, essentially. And so then you're sort of hedging some of the bet, right? However, I would like to show you a really geeky chart that shows you in wild markets, meaning, the financial crisis, COVID, things like that. If your hedge, your buying of puts, is not incredibly accurate, overall you're losing. It's not going to be something that you enjoy doing. So we have an unfair advantage here at Jazz Wealth. Our custodian that we choose to partner with is Goldman Sachs. And when I tell you they know anything and everything going on at every second of the day around the world, even I'm baffled by this when I see some of the things. I'll tell you a story at the end if you're interested, and I remember. But they have access to anything, the data. It's incredible. So I always tease our clients that, you kind of have an unfair advantage because we get to see things legally before everybody else. And, I'm here helping make those decisions. So let's take a look. And this, don't let it scare you. This is a whole lot going on here. And again, this is not my data. I asked Goldman to put this together and they did. I thought that was pretty cool. So let's take a look. All right. A lot of dots on the screen. Here's what we're doing. We are simulating you buying a put at any point going back to just before the financial crisis. So, the dot-com bubble. We're going back to the year 2000. So every dot that you see represents a day that you chose to buy a put to hedge, and then the performance of that and the market going forward. So for example, I'm going to start with the tech bubble because I circled it for you and I took a little more time on this. But so in here, in this circle, give or take about 10 scenarios, this is every day during the tech bubble bursting that you could have bought a put to hedge. And you get what we're doing here. I'm scared. I see the tech bubble bursting. If you lived during that time, or were in the markets, I should say, I lived during that time. And you say, buy a put, buy a put, buy a put, buy a put. Next day passes, buy a put. Next day, buy a put, right? So every single day here. So what we're showing is the S&P's performance during, in this case, we're segmenting it. I should have taken these out. We're segmenting the S&P's performance during the tech bubble. So as it recovered, of course, the performance turned positive. And then on the y-axis here, we're representing the return of your hedge. So if you had hedged one for one, what would you have made relative to what the stock market did? So hopefully that makes sense. So for example, at the absolute low, that's this light blue guy right here. I don't know why this cursor is this color. Oh, there we go. Now I do. So at the absolute low of the tech bubble, if you were to have bought a put as the high of the tech bubble, if you were to have bought a put as a hedge, your timing couldn't have been any better. It's essentially what we're trying to show. What's best case scenario? So the S&P performance, the market had at that point now lost over 30%, and your put had returned over 10%. So your hedge, in this case, worked out not one for one, but about 1 for 3. Any other time in this scenario, your hedge, it was still pretty positive. This is a wild time in the market. So if you're not familiar with this, we'll do the next one here. But a pretty wild time, but essentially your put did okay. Your put starts to lose as the market recovered in here. And I guess, if you know options, you understand why. Take a look at the financial crisis. At the peak of the financial crisis, your put would have returned 20% for an eventual drop of nearly 50% in the stock market. If you were a little bit off, you can see that's as good as it was going to get for you right there. You might have been this guy right here that waited until the market started to fall or had a little bit bad timing on your put. Your return was still respectable, 15%, but your eventual loss in the market at one point would have been down at this point, say, 33%. So we're timing these up with the days. More currently, we've got the COVID crisis. Now, these are three massive moments in time that you may not have had time to consider buying a put. And I'd venture to guess that you probably wouldn't have bought it perfectly. You would have not likely said, oh, this COVID thing's going to get out of control. I'm going to buy a put on the very day the market peaked, right? Probably not the case. In that case, you're almost 1 for 1 here because it was a rather swift move. Volatility did not have a chance to increase, really, because it all kind of happened. You can see how long this was. The market was, it fell like in 11 days straight, so it was real quick. So the volatility component of the cost of this put didn't have a chance to kick in. Nonetheless, you got about a 23% return with a 23% loss. You had a perfect hedge at that moment in time. Any other time, you did not have a perfect hedge. Okay? You with me so far? Yeah, I knew this is going to be a little bit deeper here. So even if you don't understand it, if you've ever thought of buying a put, just know that your timing better be incredibly perfect. You almost have to be ahead of the curve, which nobody is, right? Because we're not nervous. Just 2 weeks ago, would you have thought the banks were going to, do that thing? No, I would have never even thought of it. It would never even occurred to pretty much anybody. All right, so let's just say generally you're like, okay, I feel like something is going to happen. I would like to buy a put, and you're just a random put buyer to hedge your position. You actually, when we take all of them in consideration, you end up with always losing while the market continues higher. So your put averages a loss, it's only a small one, but it averages a loss of about 2.2%, while the market would have returned just about 8%, right in there, right? In other words, the put was a complete waste of money. You would have been better off, being right, finding that there was some temporary dip in the market that then recovered itself, and you went about your way. So I'm not discounting puts at all, by no means. It's a very common strategy in the world of portfolio management to say, I have this whole portfolio made up of all kinds of stuff, and I like the way it's performing, but I'm going to buy a put, take some of that profit, buy a put on an index. If this portfolio is a small cap portfolio, you would use the Russell 2000 and say, I'm going to take some amount and I'm going to buy a put on the Russell 2000. My argument there is that you would be better off moving to cash. In particular, in this type of higher interest rate environment, you'd be better off moving to a money market account and just holding the cash rather than paying for that insurance. Because as we see, unless you perfectly time a major catastrophe in the economy and stock market, then it was just a cost that you didn't need, kind of like, like an insurance. You hope you don't need it, but it's a cost to you until there becomes a need. And, the goal is not to have a need. So if you're buying puts, you're not buying them for fun because you think the market's going to fall 5%. You're buying them in anticipation of a catastrophe, right? None of this in here is people just, well, there could be traders, of course, but none of this is a simulation of you just saying, I don't want to participate in a small decline in the market. You're buying a put to fight off these major outlier events, really, is one way to say it. And so, that's what I have for you there. It's kind of a different way of going about it, right? So consider the puts. I could have just said that real quick. Anyways, that was an extreme amount of data in one chart. And if your financial advisor doesn't have access, maybe this isn't for you, right? And you say, wow, that doesn't interest me. But I'm trying to also drive home the point that we have an unfair advantage of being able to get this kind of data and analyze it to say, hey, even though we may have the option to buy puts against our clients' accounts and hedge it, that's just a cost that they're going to bear, and it doesn't make sense. There's no statistical advantage. There's a dartboard advantage. Maybe I guessed the top before there's some major catastrophe, terrorist attack, collapse, or whatever. But that wouldn't be in your best interest. I love those kind of things. Absolutely love those kind of things. And I hope you like it too, at least from a lesson standpoint. So I'll wrap it up there. I've already forgotten about the thing that I told you I would tell you about. Someone can remind me, and I'll just do a quick video to say, I don't know. I'm sorry. Get thinking the options world, and now I'm on a whole different level. Anyways, enjoy the rest of your evening. If you're enjoying, of course, I hope you'll hit the subscribe button and keep us in mind at jazzwealth.com. By the way, if you've made it this far, guess the Dow. We brought back, Cody pushed for it. We brought back Guess the Dow. jazzwealth.com/guess the Dow. And if you guess if you're the closest guess in where the Dow's going to finish without going over, Price is Right style, then we'll send you $100 or a $100 gift card, really just however you want $100. Or if you're a client, we'll credit your account $100, and that doesn't count towards IRA contributions or anything, but you can certainly elect to do that or just take the gift card. Most clients chose the gift card back in the day, but we'll see how it goes. Anyways, jazzwealth.com/guess the Dow. And you're welcome to play. You don't have to be a client or anything. Just jump on there. We won't sell your information. We don't play games like that. Just a fun game between all of us here to engage a little bit. And you'll never see spam or marketing or anything like that from us. Promise. All right. Enjoy the rest of your evening. And thanks so much for hanging out with me here tonight. And cheers to Balcony's Bourbon. Very good. Tomorrow we're going to try Texas Pot Still Bourbon. See you then.